Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista Series 6. This is the cow in the room. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it's in. And I tell you what, Dale, this could be like, if we wanted it to be about a 7-day episode. There's so much material here. I guess it's reasonable we start with Donald Trump.
I think you're right, and in a way, he contradicts your opening intro. If it's green, it's in because he's so very not green, but he's in.
Could he be secretly green?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of these big things is drill, baby, drill, right? And it turns out the stats say that he issued less oil and gas licenses in his last term than Biden did subsequently in his term. I think Trump was running at about 300 licenses a year, and Biden ran at about 460. So maybe he is secretly green.
Wow. Who knew that Sleepy Joe was an oil dickhead? We're learning something every day.
The world we live in is so Trumpian. I mean,
it's utterly bizarre. I mean, that's his direction of travel. Whether he delivers that, it's going to be interesting to see the license count, isn't it? As to if that's the barometer by which we go, which I suppose it kind of is.
Well, he's also said he's going to ban targets or end targets for electric cars. And you've got to think, well, Musk will have something to say about that, you would think. He's pulled the US out of the Paris Climate Accord for the second time. I think that's hilarious. He's also pulling out of the World Health Organization, says he can't see the benefit. Well, all right. He is the president of a country with a completely broken medical system. So maybe that adds up. And he wants to, in fact, he says he's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America. Man's so funny.
The Gulf of Trump, I think, is going to change too as well. He just wants to call every state Trumpsville.
It's a Gulf of reason. That's what the Gulf of Trump is. It's just missing. Where's the rationale? That's what I'm saying. The Gulf.
You mentioned Elon Musk there. I know there's been a little bit of history between you and the mighty Musk, but something really weird happened when he gave a speech this week, and he's been accused of giving a Nazi salute.
That's right. Oh, you just reminded me. I watched Dr. Strangelove at the theatre a couple of weeks ago, and it's the theatre version of that old classic film. Is it Peter Sellers?
That's right.
And Steve Coogan is like the lead. He plays a couple of different characters. He plays this ex-Nazi scientist in a wheelchair who's like the brains behind, I don't know, a lot of stuff. And he's got like a robotic arm that he can't control. And every now and then he gives a Nazi salute and he tries to rein it in. He tries to pull it back down because it's embarrassing him. And as like Musk has got the same kind of problem. He's got this autonomous arm that just wants to make the salute. And online, of course, people are saying, he's not a fascist and, it's a Roman salute and it's not a Nazi salute and all this kind of stuff. And I just think, come on, look, it is what it is. We all know what it is. And if you were doing that at a protest somewhere in London, you'd get arrested.
It was love from his heart, Dale. That's apparently what the official line was. He was giving love from the heart to the world.
Really?
Yeah, because he's Elon, right? He's all about the love.
So Bernie Sanders, right? I've seen a brilliant little clip on social media. Bernie Sanders gave a little speech, and he said he was at the inauguration of Trump, and he said in his speech, he didn't mention the big problems that America and ordinary Americans are facing, one of which is a broken health system. There's a housing crisis. Obviously, there's a climate crisis. And he said the three richest people in America own more money than half the rest of the country. And he said those three people were sat behind Trump at his inauguration. Yeah, that would be Musk, Zuckerberg, and Bezos. And I thought that was a really interesting little fact.
That is fascinating. And also, I think the Facebook Zuckerberg thing has been given a bit of a free pass, frankly. I mean, they just made a great play of the fact, Zuckerberg's made up with Trump. And in fact, the real headline is the publisher, the biggest publisher of news on the planet, has decided to editorially please the new president. Now, that's the kind of stuff people used to talk about in North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, it's like an appeasement, isn't it, of this?
It's utterly bizarre considering who they are.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, America looks like it looks a bit like the Roman Empire, that Musk might have been emulating with his out of control autonomous arm salute, because Trump appears to be somebody that feels like an emperor. He wants to grab back the Panama Canal. He wants to own Canada and Greenland.
Greenland.
He'll start wars with them, economic ones at least, if he can't have them.
Yeah.
And he has what appear to be imperial ambitions, although he says he won't start a war. But I don't think he includes economic wars in that claim. He just means he won't start one with bullets and bombs.
Yeah. He could start a war with his wife's hat. Did you see that thing? Man alive.
Yes.
So that was some. I thought it was you can get Sky on that apparently on a good day. That was some kind of hat, about 2 meters in diameter.
But I found it really interesting what Bernie Sanders said, because he didn't talk about the housing crisis, 1 million homeless people, and nearly half the country spending half their wages on housing costs, keeping them in poverty, and a broken medical system where Americans are paying up to 10 times more for prescription drugs than in other Western nations. And I thought to myself, do you know what? It's not that different over here. We've got the new leader of the Tory party that isn't talking about the problems facing ordinary people. She wants to talk about grooming gangs, which in 15 years the Tories did nothing about. She wants to talk about immigration, which in 15 years the Tories just let run riot and out of control, but made much noise about, but not about the cost of living crisis and the real problems that people are facing. And I think that's an interesting parallel between a very extreme right wing in the US and a less extreme version here. And of course, then there's Farage, who's somewhere in between the two, who again isn't addressing the issues that people really are facing, just inflammatory issues.
Well, let's talk about China, because that always comes up. And there's some smart money says that Trump is going to talk China very soon, and he's mentioned tariffs, which could be a horrific problem for America. It's all very well going, we're going to put a tariff. Sounds very tough until people realize all the stuff they've got is going to cost loads more to buy. So there's going to be that factor in there. But actually, interestingly, on the environmental stuff, China's renewable energy capacity installations are actually at a record high. So there's it's said, I could be cynical, it could just be, a lot of propaganda from the Chinese, but apparently they're leaps and bounds ahead of anyone else.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't think Trump understands tariffs, because he said before that he'll make them pay more to sell stuff into America. And it's actually Americans that have to pay this. It's effectively a tax, and it will have a bad impact on their economy. Last time the Chinese stopped buying soybeans, they just stopped buying them, and that really f***ed up the farmers. And, there'll be a quid pro quo. China will stand up to America, absolutely, if there's a trade war. The EU will as well. And I think this is an awful lot of hot air. What the Chinese are doing is just simply staggering. Last year, they broke their own record for installation rates. Solar went up 45%, wind went up 18%, and they beat their 2030 target to install 1.2 terawatts of combined wind and solar energy 6 years early. They hit the target in 2024. I mean, in hell. China are running away with it. They really are. And I say fair play to them. And surely there's nobody left in this world, not even Julia Hartley-Brewer, that says, well, what about China? If they're not doing it, why should we?
In fact, Julia's just sent me a text. Hang on, it's coming up now. What about China, she says.
You're like a broken record, Julia.
There is. She loves you. And that's just a silence to that rather profound statement. This from Rachel, who says, when is the Cow in the Room book going to be released?
That's a good question. And I think the answer is May. I think it might be May. It may be May even.
Okay. Paul on LinkedIn, any updates on Ecojet? When are you in the air, Dale?
Yeah. That's a good question. There's a lot going on with Ecojet. So at the outset, we thought we needed £8 million in the bank to satisfy the Civil Aviation Authority requirement for cash flow security for upstart, I want to say, new startup airlines. It turned out last summer it was 20 million. And so we did everything that we otherwise could do. We got a ticketing system, we hired staff, we trained them, we got landing slots, built a headquarters, not built it, but got a headquarters and staffed it and that kind of stuff. We did everything. Yep. We got the plane leases lined up, the technologies lined up. And then we had to go out and fundraise for the £20 million. We began that in October. And as I speak, we haven't raised anything yet, but we're not disappointed because we've been at it a few months and Christmas got in the way. And that's where we're at. We need to raise 20 million quid to get in the air. The technology itself, we now have a firm date for these hydrogen-powered engines with fuel cells will be here in 2028. So that's 3 years from now. And that gives us a little bit of, I want to say, runway to get ourselves going. But what I'm hoping is that in the next 3 months, we'll find some people interested in starting the world's first zero carbon airline. And also, now that I know where I stand divorce-wise, I know what money we have to spend on things. I think we're ready to chip some of that in as well, which should help. And I'm hoping by the summer, we'll have a view on when we'll be taken to the skies, possibly still under the original plan, which is with kerosene engines to begin with. And when the replacement engines come along, just swap them out and, hey presto, become a zero carbon hydrogen powered airline.
You just mentioned runways there. There's an Ed Miliband story I want to come to, but there is this controversy over a third runway again at Heathrow, which is a story I swear has been around since we were both in shorts. It's just been there forever, this thing. Rachel Reeves is apparently in favour of it. Ed Miliband clearly wouldn't be. Keir Starmer, we don't know yet. What would be your reaction if the Labour government were the people that gave the go-ahead finally to the Heathrow third runway?
Well, part of me would expect to see Boris Johnson lay in front of the bulldozers because he wants.
Well, yeah, I was talking about that this afternoon, and then when there was a vote on it, he legged it to another country, didn't he?
He did, so he couldn't. He went to Afghanistan or something. So he
that's how bad it was. He went to Afghanistan to get away from trouble.
But of course, there's another part of me that says, well, Boris Johnson never said anything that was true, so don't expect him to come and lay down in front of a bulldozer. Look, I'd be disappointed. I saw that the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, said that he would start legal action if that happened. I will join him if that happens. I will join him because I think it's an outrage. The argument at the moment appears to be it's one of the things Labour may do to encourage economic growth. I think the degree to which we get economic growth from more planes and more runways is overstated. There are other ways to get economic growth. And of course, it is in conflict with our urgent need to keep emissions down and to get to net zero. So for me, it would be a bad decision, and I would help. I would work with the people that are going to try and fight it.
And it would compromise, if not obliterate, the kind of net zero commitment in many respects. But my sense is she's kind of on her own on this at the moment. And she hasn't come out flag waving saying we need a third runway. It's just been muted that she might.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I am glad to hear that because it would, it wouldn't be nice.
Yeah.
I must say, emissions from flying are not like they're not the biggest thing in the world. Is it 7%, 5%, something like that? Yeah. But they're growing very fast, and we've got to stop that growth. And of course, they're quite impactful in terms of where they're released high up in the atmosphere. But it's also a symbolic thing, to be feeding this, climate damaging industry, allowing it to grow at a time when we've got to cut carbon emissions, not grow them. I just think that would be wrong. And actually, I would say the government should put more effort and perhaps even some money into low carbon flying. And that's not a pitch for Ecojet. That's not that. But, there's more that could be done. And actually, let's improve public transport, stuff like that. And it's worth bearing in mind. I think something like 10% of Britons take 50% of all flights. So this isn't about cheap holidays for poor people. There's some people that are just flying an absurd amount because it is absurdly cheap, right? They pay no tax at all, no VAT, no fuel duty. They get duty-free fags and booze and stuff, people that fly. And we've made flying absurdly cheap while it's also absurdly damaging. And all of that is absurd.
And Ed Miliband is also in the news because he admits apparently that heat pumps may never be cheaper than gas boilers, despite Labour sneaking a boiler tax through Parliament.
Yeah. So I like this headline because it's almost like the beginning of the end, in a way, of the crumbling of the argument, because he will eventually, I think, have to acknowledge the bigger truth, which is that they will never be cheaper than boilers. Not they may never, but they will never. This story came out in the same week as Ofgem declared that it costs around £2,000 per house to disconnect from the gas grid. So on top of the 15 grand to buy your heat pump, instead of 2 grand for a gas boiler, you spend 2 grand, the price of a gas boiler, disconnecting from the gas main. Yeah. So unless heat pumps are free, they will always cost more than a gas boiler.
Yeah. Whatever the arguments are, the financial one is kind of settled.
It's never going to stack up. So we're commissioning a study at the moment because I think it's really desperately needed. We're commissioning a study of all of the data in the UK from people that have heat pumps, from what we can see, the coefficient of performance does not exceed 2.5 as a nationwide average. Proponents of heat pumps talk about 5, the mythical 5, where your bills actually get lower. If you don't get to 4, your bill stays the same at 4. So if you can't get to 4, your bill will go up. In the real world, we're getting 2.5. We're going to reach out to people with heat pumps, find out what the experience is like. In terms of, was the house warm or cold, or was it easy, was it complicated, did they change the radiators, as well as look at the data and try to present a real picture. I think that the rate of installations is 1/10 of the target, and at this rate, it's going to take us 500 years to get to a complete national program of heat pumps, which is a joke anyway. But I think it's the houses that are most suited for heat pumps. This is only a theory. The most suitable houses with the best insulation and the people that can afford them the most. And still, I think it's failing. But we're going to dive into it. We're going to publish a study.
Sure. Question here from Edward, who says, are you still selling windmills with BritWind? Is it any easier to get one for my small holding yet?
Yes, and yes. But we bought a company just before Christmas that made this great little 1 kilowatt machine. And what I like about it is that you can install it yourself on a scaffolding pole with guy wires without a foundation. It's just a lovely small machine, very cheap, very economic in terms of its output, so very accessible. And I would say yes to that one for a small holding. I think it'd be really perfect. I'm getting one on my house as I speak.
Wow. Can you get 10? Light up the whole bloody place?
Yes, you can. We're actually going to stick them on Grid Fairies batteries as well, because we have these great chunks of battery and that really, the whole thing weighs about 40 tons and there's lots of solid metal brackets all over them. And we've got an image, maybe I'll share it one day for the podcast. We've got an image. We have a 15 kilowatt solar array across the top already, and we're going to put a little windmill on each corner of this rectangular battery. And probably we can generate maybe 20 kilowatts of renewable energy on this battery. And when we're on site for 10 days, that adds up to quite a lot of power in a 1 megawatt hour battery. So,
absolutely.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Let's talk about the jellyfish. What is going on with the jellyfish, Dale? They're threatening Scottish salmon farms. Well, we don't really go a bundle on Scottish salmon farms. So, I don't want to kill the salmon, but are the jellyfish inadvertently solving a problem?
It is a problem. Salmon farming is a problem. They've got a mortality rate of about 30%. So that means just they live in such shit conditions, so cramped and diseased and filthy, that 1/3 of them never make it to the point where they get killed for food. That in itself is incredible.
Yeah.
The ratio of protein in to protein out of salmon farming, new information shows, is about 5 to 1. We're putting 5 in to get 1 back. That's bizarre and perverse, but it's made worse by the fact that what we're putting in, those 5 to get 1 back out, is wild fish. We're hoovering the oceans of wild fish to feed salmon to get less back out. It's incredible. And the jellyfish attack, which has happened in Norway and has really been quite decimating, appears to be nature fighting back. And I say, go jellyfish.
Yeah, go jellyfish. They'll be pleased to hear that as well.
I'm on Team Jellyfish on this one.
MBEs for the jellyfish. Before we go to X-Rated Corner, because we love that piece of the podcast, the UK's first fully plant-based workplace canteen opens. Where the heck is this? What sort of company has done this, Dale? Who's gone there?
I'm not sure, but I think it was nearby. I think it's downstairs. I thought we touched on it last week. We just began a pop-up canteen at our place in Strat. Honestly, I think I should have done it years ago. I've just been too busy. We brought food from Forest Green, fantastic food. And we've created a really great atmosphere and vibe for our people. And it turns out that it's the first plant-based workplace canteen in the country. Who knew? It's 15 years after Forest Green became the first plant-based football club in the world. I thought that the world would have moved on a little bit by then, but maybe like us, the world has been too busy. But we started a canteen following our principles, and it's brilliant. And Breakfast TV, Good Morning Britain, they're coming down next week to have a look and do some filming. I think that's a bit fun.
That's good. And nick a burger probably in the process.
Yeah, probably.
They love
because we have Devil's Kitchen burgers down here, by the way. It's all the Forest Green. All the Forest Green specials, they'll come here. It's all good.
It is time for X-Rated Corner. Got some beauties here, Dale. This is from N. Whatnot, who says, Dale, Vince, are you just jealous of Elon Musk's spotlight, turning a heartfelt gesture into a drama while boasting about being a vegan? Are you using Musk to stay relevant? There you go. You've been told off, Dale.
And which heartfelt gesture was that? The Nazi salute?
I assume so.
Wow. Then we live in alternate universes. I don't understand.
I don't think anyone's meant to understand some of these tweets, to be fair.
No, yeah, you're right. I'm trying too hard. No, I'm not using Musk. I can't. I mean, we can't help but see him, can we? He's on our screens all the time.
It'd be weird if he wasn't mentioned in a podcast like this. Naomi Ripley, there's a beautiful typo on this as well. He says, how many times in 1 week can Dale Vince lose? First, 40 pounds. Then his whole climate thing is scuppered by Trump. It's been a good week. I think Naomi was referring to your High Court decision.
Yes.
It wasn't £40, of course. It was a bit more, but it was far less than it could have been.
Yeah. We talked about that last week, and I'm almost over it now. I think I was ranting a bit last week, but it was all kind of fresh, really. It's
not really a loss, is it?
No, it's not a loss. No, I mean
there was never any doubt that there was an offer. It's just that now, because of the court and the lawyers, the offer is the amount is less than it would have been originally.
Absolutely. They began asking for 100 million. I offered 50 4 years ago, and the walk away from the court last week actually was 38 million. I mean, there was an award of 41.8, but with a £4 million legal bill. Which reduces it to a walkaway 38. So against asking for 100, being offered 50, they got 38. But the 50 was 4 years ago, and with interest, that's worth 58 today. So it's walkaway with 38, could have had 58. Epic failure.
Yeah. I'm only going to ask you this because lots of people listening will ask. Do you just write a check for that?
Yes, listen, I think that's a fair question. I was thinking to myself today because people talk to me about it, and I mean, I sometimes think that I should say, I haven't got 40 million quid, right? I mean, I don't. I've got some thousands of pounds in the bank. But actually, I think my net worth at the moment is negative. I've got more debt than I've got money in the bank, but not by much. And I'm not worried about it because I'm going to have to sell some things. That's what I'll do to pay off this bargain divorce settlement. And I'll do that in the next few months, and it's all fine. I've got a couple of years to pay, so it's in installments. And look, I'm happy with it. But no, I can't just write a check for it because I haven't got it.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. Matt says Dale Vince has signed Ivanka Trump. I didn't expect that. What does that refer to, Dale?
There's a post on social media of Ivanka in some kind of outfit. And the words along with it said she had opted for forest green or chosen forest green or something like that. And we put out a little cheeky social media post saying, this is fake news.
Yeah.
Ivanka Trump has not signed for forest green Rovers.
Love it. And here's a beauty from Mikey Marbella says, what a twat you are, Dale Vince. 10,000 millionaires have left the UK since you commies took over. There you go, Dale. You've been rumbled and scuppered by Marky Marbella.
Do you know what? This is really interesting because it's been in the news that Britain has something like 3 million millionaires. Who knew? I didn't. Yeah. And 10,000 have left the country. But when you crunch the numbers, that's 0.3% of our millionaires that left the country last year, presumably because they didn't like the idea of paying a little bit more tax. Yeah. I say them. And there's nothing like an exodus of millionaires when you look at it, and it's 0.3%. Yeah. It shows you that most people with money take things responsibly and seriously, and they say, look, I've got enough money, I can pay more tax, it's important to the country, I like this country, I'm staying here, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm putting words into their mouths.
That's all right.
They're still here.
Yeah, I was about to quote what my old Nam would have said, but you've just said what my old Nam would have said.
Did I? That's the most important answer.
That is
them 10,000. They've gone.
Yeah,
they're
and
dead.
Even that figure's probably not true anyway. So
it's a bit of a round number, isn't it? For one thing.
That's very true. Yeah, it's a very convenient number, isn't it? Yeah. That's it, Dale. We're done.
No,
we're
it
done.
Can't be.
We're done with the shiny new set behind you. For those who listen to this in audio, by the way, there's a whole video version of this over on YouTube.
There you go. Who knew that?
And Dale's got one of those kind of, I don't know what that is behind you. Is that a sort of take over the world map where you can?
Yeah, that's it.
There it
That's
is.
my map of the world. My
That
model
looks
of the
like your
world.
new stadium right there.
Yeah, that's junction 13 of the M5, and the thing we call Eco Park, the 4,000 job green tech business park, stadium, training ground, shit like that. That we talked about last week, that we suddenly got all kinds of permissions for coming out of our ears.
It's all kicking off.
Yeah.
Dale, we're speaking a week. Don't forget, of course,
sorry, I meant to say something on it. Yes,
that's right. I love the nod. There's nothing wrong with the nod. It's a very noble nod as well. You can, of course, follow Dale on social media: twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.